Latest technology, the CD-ROM computer. This is a multimedia system.
Karim, welcome back.
Hi. Yes, thank
Hi.
you.
Great to have you back here. So, as I know you are very familiar, we will be joined by Adam Ritchie, director of AudioVelocity today. But before before we welcome him, I had a question for you. And the question is, it's going to be maybe a real zinger, but
Okay.
what problem does audio advertising promise to solve for brands?
Wow. Okay. This is an interesting question. And I actually have an answer to this. So about maybe 2 years ago, I gave a talk internally here at Active, and in my talk, I spoke about the importance of audio advertising, and I was specifically referring to podcast advertising. And the premise of my answer was about attention, that consumers pay attention to ads on podcasts. And I went to and I showed that because of the response that consumers have to ads. I think the number at the time was over 65% of people that listened to ads took some sort of action. They either did research on the company, they went to the company's website, they spoke to people about it, or they actually went and purchased a product or a service. So they were paying attention. I think that's the number one thing. And I think that relates to the ability to have ads on podcasts that are host read. So the host that you listen to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is the one speaking about the product or service that they like and are encouraging you that maybe you would like this product or service. So I think that's number one. Number one is attention. And related to that is that consumers aren't skipping. There's no ad blocker that you could put on your smartphone or on your desktop to block ads from audio yet. I don't know if technology will catch up to that, but you can't block ads unless you actually pay for podcasts, to be delivered to you ad free. And because people are taking action, there is no ad avoidance. So they're listening to it, they're consuming it, they're paying attention, and hence they're not avoiding the ad. So a brand's message, a brand's commercial, a brand's ad is actually being heard and consumed and being paid attention to by consumers. And I think those are two very important points to bring up.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing those 2 points up. I think they're very relevant to even the work that IAB is doing both in Canada as well as globally. We've got we're in this time of the attention economy. And I know that we've been working on an attention explainer as it relates to even data signals. And so that'll be an interesting read, I'm sure, for many, a coffee table one. But the other one is subscription-based models as well. And we had some really compelling research that we just shared at our State of the Nation that equally layers into that point very nicely. So thank you for that well-rounded answer.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's chat with Adam.
Let's let him in. Okay, more officially, Adam Ritchie, welcome. You are the director at AudioVelocity. Great to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. I'm really happy to be here, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, good to see you again.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise.
Yeah. Quick question we have to kick things off. Tell us a little bit about AudioVelocity. What do you guys actually do?
Sure. Great question. We launched about 3 years ago, so it's been a really fun journey so far. What we're doing is collecting a bunch of the best audio assets available in Canada, advertising assets available in Canada, into one place. And we've built a really nice, our own marketplace or exchange, if you will, of these audio assets for advertising, both programmatic and direct. So we work in streamed or connected radio, as we like to call it, as well as in the podcast arena, and most recently really ramped up in the on-demand music arena as well as it pertains to advertising. So we're really excited to be a part of the Canadian marketplace and a more meaningful one. I'd say that's the best summary I can give. It's an ad network specifically
Yeah.
focused on audio.
Mhm.
So Adam, there's, for brands, there's a lot of places that are vying for their attention. You have search, there is social, and then there's digital, there's connected TV and video, and but we also have digital audio, right? Podcasts, streaming, on demand. What are some reasons that you feel that people, listen to digital audio, and then how do consumers engage with digital audio is, I guess, what I want to ask, that is different when we compare to other online content?
Great question, and a really fun topic, honestly. As you know and alluded to, there's a lot more options now for advertisers than there ever has been, even within the audio space, but specifically broader, that you can get really creative or just plug into an exchange and deliver impressions or results however you want. I think audio offers an interesting myriad of very good opportunities for advertisers, in that a lot of the audio content is very lean in, specifically podcasts. So if you're thinking about other media types and other advertising opportunities, how many other ones are so rarely listened to alone? You're not watching sports alone all of the time. You're not watching TV alone all of the time. With podcasts, it's very rare that you're getting your friends together to listen to the new release of your favorite podcast. You're doing that by yourself. You're leaned into it. You've got a connection with the host of that podcast. And I think that the advertising within it really resonates for that reason. I would say make a similar case for other audio advertising as well, in that it's the most common advertising media to be consumed through a headphone, and in a solo environment or in a car when you're driving in and out of work. So I think it offers that kind of dedicated time of day when you're listening to audio, in less of a busy or congested kind of time of your day. Like, for example, when you're online and getting some display ads popping up and things like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You talked earlier in your intro about the different audio opportunities, streaming, podcasts. I'm wondering if you can talk about maybe each of them. I think there was one or two other ones you had mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you can talk about, from an advertising perspective, the benefits for each one, or the reasons why an advertiser would be interested in each of those different opportunities.
Absolutely. And again, it's a really interesting topic because each one of them, and I think we'll focus just on the three main ones, which would be, again, I'll keep saying connected radio. That's what we're trying to brand this as in the market, which is essentially when you're listening to a CRTC regulated AM FM radio station through a digital connection. And as you guys would be aware of, and I'd imagine most of the audience of this podcast, it's becoming more and more popular for radio stations to creatively monetize those ad breaks and pre-rolls, of course, as well, for the digital listener. So that would be inventory type number one. We'll come back to that, podcast being the second, and then on-demand music we can take a look at as well. They all have their own unique benefits. Like I said, the connected radio piece does a really good job of driving into local markets with local originating content in small and large Canadian cities and towns. So you've got that local nature to a digitally delivered one-to-one impression, which is really interesting and unique. People especially as you get into smaller and smaller markets, really rely on local radio for things like community events, road and traffic closures, things like that. They're tuning into that now digitally, and it's a really good opportunity for advertisers to make themselves present in a media that is so trusted and relied on by the Canadian communities. So I think that if we focus, we'll try to keep a top line. That would be probably the strongest benefit of a connected radio advertising campaign.
Mhm.
As far as podcast goes, we touched on it. It's really that lean in nature of the content, and a listener is really listening to a podcast when they're listening to it, and they've specifically selected that episode because they're interested in it. Um, Ads are non-skippable, and it's a little bit annoying to grab your phone from your pocket and do the +30 -15.
Yeah.
As long as the ad breaks are, and in most content, they are very manageable and generous, as long as it's not a 3-minute ad break, a listener's just going to plow through it, especially if it's a host read, right? Because then it's still if it's a comedy podcast, for example, it's still that host that you like, and they're kind of in a lot of times making fun of the ad, but it still works for the advertiser. Everybody wins, and the listeners kind of having that memorability associated with it. So with podcast, I really think the core benefit there is having a lean in audience that really likes and has a good connection with the host, that is, sometimes maybe even as much as 30-40% of the time these days, the host is delivering the ad. So that's really cool on that front, and a really great opportunity for advertisers. And then on the on-demand music front, really interesting one, and that would be the most common one, of course, would be something like Spotify or SoundCloud. Those kind of really great apps that do a good job of engaging audiences through mood-based playlists, seasonal playlists, like holiday playlists, stuff like that. They do a really good job of building frequency, which is an important part of any media plan. They monetize a bit more of the hour than the average radio station or podcast. So you can build frequency with specifically somebody that you want to be hitting. Again, if you're an active brand or gym or something like that, you can be running ads only in fitness playlists or high energy playlists, things like that. You can pick certain artists or other genres as well. So you can really drive frequency, contextually, in a way that builds frequency, and also can avoid ad fatigue and things like that.
Adam, I want to kind of tease this apart just a little bit further, but also piggyback off of something you were just saying. And it was making me think of, you were talking about the experience that is audio, and now kind of layering in the 3 different types specifically. I'm curious about some of the creativity that you're starting to see with brand integration into these spaces, because I know in a previous conversation we had, this listening to music while doing another activity actually creates and offers up this wonderful creative brand integration. And so I'm curious, from what you're seeing, what is some of that creativity?
There's a lot happening right now, and I think that audio is really, in general, at a point where there's more budget going into it, so there's more fun things that can come out of it. Whether that looks like a branded podcast episode, for example, which is something that gets sold fairly often in the market, and it's a show, a podcast episode specifically made for a reason of pushing a brand in a non-obvious way. Some brands have their own podcasts, like that Ford podcast that came out not too long ago is a really great example of a large scale brand integration into content that people actually wanted, which can be a struggle with branded content, because you are essentially, I don't want to say it in such crude terms, but I will anyways, you're dressing up an ad, right? The intention is to build some form of positive brand association for the advertiser, but you can do it in a way where the content is actually meaningful, and people want to listen to it. I think on the other side of the coin, in the on-demand music space, I can only speak for SoundCloud because we work with them. They have a lot of really cool integrations that are possible in terms of artist takeovers, page takeovers, and there's a really big visual aspect to that when you're on their player through the web or in their app. Looks really good, and a brand can really like own either a genre, an artist, a playlist, things like that. So again, it's bringing that visual aspect, tying it in with audio ads that are found within that playlist or stream, and building kind of a really nice holistic 360 plan just within audio, and then you can extend that outwards as well from there.
I think you've probably answered this question in bits and pieces, Adam. But sort of to tie a bow around this episode, we've seen, I think it was last year, if not the year before, digital audio finally eclipsed in terms of time spent radio in Canada. We're seeing that the number of people listening to podcasts continues to tick upwards. What are some emerging trends and best practices in audio advertising that brands should consider in order to maximize their ROI, maximize their impact?
Great question. And it's where I'm going to go with this is one of the challenges I think in audio in general and in advertising in general that advertisers often face, which is having a holistic campaign reach, frequency, and delivery performance number. How do you fight against it in audio? Luckily, like you said, there is so much potential in digital audio right now that you can start to fight against that and build campaigns in, if you're an advertiser using one buying platform, you can grab PG deals and PMP deals from all your vendors and place them in one buying platform and look at those results holistically within. So you're starting to get into a place where you can understand and have a more accurate reach frequency number against a campaign, which is, I think, one of the strongest best practices that we fight against and try and communicate to our agencies, which is protect that number, understand your goal. What is your campaign goal? And what level of ad frequency or reach percent are you trying to achieve to push that goal across the finish line, which I think is really important and sometimes strangely and surprisingly forgotten about, in that there are just so many options, like we launched off with on this episode. There's more options now than there ever has been in terms of where you can place ads on the internet. And I think it's really important, to just focus on your goals, understand what audio can do against those goals, and make sure that you're protecting your numbers and having a holistic understanding of where the campaign landed.
Again, best practices, but also speaks to where to start and how to ensure that there is clarity on those pieces, which I think are fundamental anyways, right? For a buyer, a planner.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always going to start with a goal. And I think what you need to do is just make sure that you're watching that goal throughout the campaign. And of course, with digital advertising in general, you can do that very effectively and optimize within a campaign and change things if and as you need to. And of course, you can't have a podcast episode these days without saying the two letters AI. That's going to influence that significantly as well in the coming months and years also, with regards to optimizing digital advertising campaigns, which is, I can't wait. It's going to be a fun 5 years.
We look forward to having you back, Adam, to talk about that very piece.
I'd love to. I'd love to be there.
Months' time.
Or the AI version of Adam, whichever one has time.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be my essence, but it may not be my physical body.
There you are.
Your AI voice.
Adam, thank you so much for your time. This has been a fun chat.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks a bunch. I'd love to come back anytime. And yeah, onwards and upwards for all of us.
Adam, thank you.
Thanks.